Hey guys, how's it going? Danconia and welcome back to the Overwatch Transfer Roundup. Okay, we've got a lot to get through, so we're going to go crack on, and my voice is still not brilliant, so we're going to crack on. So, the American DPS player Capo has left the North American Contenders team Bermuda, and we're going to stick with Bermuda because 4 other of their roster have also moved. So 3 DPS players, Ultima Web, these names, geez, Brooks, Hissetful, and then the support Pizza Demon, they've moved from Bermuda to Noble. So, and then we move on to Noble because Noble have also signed 3 other players, the tank player Mupi, the Trinidad and Tobago tank player Infernal, and the support player Tensor. Then we move to Korea, where Gen G have been sorting out their roster because obviously they lost a few during this Overwatch League off-season. So, DNCE, the band? No, I'm joking. Support player has left Gen G, and Gen G have promoted some talent from their other rosters because they've got a lot of academies. So from Gen A, they have promoted Haim, the DPS player, and then from Gen B, they have promoted B9 and someone to the Gen G roster. And then, this was quite interesting. I wasn't expecting this, but they've actually got a coach from Runaway, Noru, to join Gen G as well. So, Runaway, I don't know what's going on at Runaway. Runaway are making some interesting things happening at Runaway during this off-season. It's not usual to see this going on at Runaway anyway. But, moving on, and Ground Zero Gaming in Australia have been making some signings as well. So, they have signed 3 free agents, Kuffa the tank player, CKM the DPS player, and the South Korean DPS player Nyang. And then they have signed Tung, the Australian support player from Warriors Esports. And then they've made 3 signings from Order, who are current champions of Australia. That is the DPS player signed, the tank player Adam, and the support player Hunter. So, interesting roster being built at Ground Zero Gaming, and this is certainly going to put them up there in terms of Australia. Then we have some moves at Metaranthena. Metaranthena have let coach Wu Young go, and 2 DPS players Shubil and Teru go. And they have brought in 2 DPS players, Poise and Tampa. And then they have signed a new coach from Warriors Esports, and that is Zune. Then we have some promotions at Element Mystique from the Element Mystique Academy, and this is a DPS player He Sang, and the tank player, I should say, Wiz. These will be playing for the main Element Mystique roster next season and not Element Mystique Academy. Then we have some movements at Mega Esports, which are a team from Thailand, if you didn't know, and will be competing in the Southeast Asian region, the Pacific region of Contenders in this coming season. They have signed Blue, the DPS player, Sukzen, the tank player, Kraz1S, the tank player, all these are Taiwanese, the Taiwanese support player, Bravo Olav, and then Jervis, the Singapore support player, has also signed for Mega Esports. And then they've also made a signing from another team. This is from the Far East Society, and this is the Singaporean DPS player Bubble Kitty. Oh, my voice is really not doing well. Oh dear. But then we're going to get on some names you'll know. So we're going to cover Global Esports now, and Global Esports are another team in the Pacific. They have let go a lot of their roster. So 2 DPS players from Singapore. That's Lil Rax Jumo. Then a South Korean DPS player, Kim Ju Tae, and then an Indian DPS player, Cruzy, and a support player from Singapore is Jean Flux. And then they have replaced this with 4 players so far. This is Water, the DPS player, you may know him. Carefree, I'm sure you will know him, the American DPS player. The tank Tita Watt from Thailand. And then Ayako, the support player from Singapore, all signing for Global Esports before this coming Contender season. And then we have a movement in Korea, and this is the tank player Sven, the South Korean tank player. He will be playing for GC Busan Wave next season. He is transferring from LG Huya. LG Huya have gone through a lot of changes during this off-season because basically they're doing really well in Contenders China, and a lot of people want their players. And then 2 coaches have come in to Talon Esports, and these are Spazzo, the American coach, and Card, the South Korean coach. And then we have a manager change at Montreal Rebellion. Tanzanique will be manager of Montreal Rebellion and Niriki Esports in Contenders EU, because Niriki Esports have come back, and they've signed a few players that were either let go by Clockwork Vendetta or let go by Giganti when Giganti said they weren't going to take up their spot for 2020. So, talking Narika Esports, let's go through the 6 signings there. DPS player Visility from the Netherlands, 2 British players, the DPS player Hybrid and the tank Numlocked, you'll know Numlocked, the off-tank French player Tech36, the support player Zuppe from Finland, and the support player from Romania, Sky Ripper. Sky Ripper you'll know from Clockwork Vendetta. Tech36 did very well for France in the World Cup, so did Visility for Team Netherlands. Numlocked has got a storied history with Overwatch League teams in the NA Valiant, as well as the British Overwatch World Cup team as well. Zuppe you'll know from the Florida Mayhem originally. A lot of well-known names signing up for Narika Esports, one to watch out for in the European contenders for this coming season. And then we have 2 people leaving Second Wind in America. This is Barbecue9130. Why? And Bird. And then Second Wind have made 6 signings. So they're all American apart from Rolf, who is Canadian and the support player. And the Americans are Ultraviolet, the support player, Geo, the tank player, Higan, the tank player, Iced, the DPS player, and Dalton, the DPS player, all signing up for Second Wind ahead of the NA contender season. And then we take a look at the Atlanta Academy. Atlanta Academy been a bit quiet so far until now. They were very good last year in NA contenders, but in the transfer market they've been very quiet until now. So they have let Kodak go, the support player, the German support player. He was with the Atlanta main roster at one point. They have signed 2 tank players from Phase 2. This is Dan's the Dutch tank player and Pika the American tank player. They have signed the Japanese support Haku. And then they have signed the American support Kaka from Fusion University, which now no longer exists. He was inactive on that roster, but Fusion University no longer exists. I will mention that in a minute. And that is the signings for Atlanta Academy. Then we move on to Team Envy. Team Envy have let their the American support player Fire go, and they have made 5 signings. This is OG the support player, Finzi the tank player, Salieri, the American tank player, and 2 DPS players, Onigod from Norway and Kevster from Sweden. I think these are good signings for Team Envy. I think Team Envy will be good going into next season, and they looking at the results so far in the Contenders seeding tournament, which hasn't finished yet. We will cover that once it's finished. Then we go back to Clockwork Vendetta. They have let their British support player Cronus go, and they have replaced him with the French support player Starboy, and I think that's how you say that. It's spelled SSTARBO0I. I presume it's Starboy. Then we move on back to America, and Tea Party have made 2 signings. One from Phase 1, which is the tank player Salt Shaker, and then from Phase 2, they have signed the support player Lep. And sticking with Phase 2, they have also signed a load of people to their roster, so it's 6 players. We have 3 support players, American Gunter, the South Korean support player Aztak, and the American Nishik. And then we have 2 tank players, Vulcan from America, Panka from South Korea, and then Romanov, the DPS American player. Then we have some movements here, Young and Beautiful in Europe, and this is KSA leaving. Now this was kind of surprised to me actually, because I thought KSA was actually pretty decent, but Young and Beautiful have decided that it's time for KSA to move on. Now we move to Brazil. It's a lot to cover, I did say. It's a lot to cover. And Up Gaming, where they have let 5 players go. This is the support player Pardal, the tank players Darken and Shadow Song, the DPS player Neohul, and the flex player Stylo. They have replaced them with 5 players and a coach, Coach Euro, the support Raul from Chile, the support Doctor from Brazil, the tank Herd from Argentina, the tank Storm from Brazil, and the DPS player Ram from Chile as well. Moving back to Europe, and we have Gustav, the support player, who is transferred from Shoes Money Crew EU to Young and Beautiful. Young and Beautiful also made 3 other signings from free agents, and this is IBTB, the German support player, the Finnish tank player Vestola, and the British tank player Jakaru19. Oh, we're getting there. Now we get to the Overwatch League. And this is something I'm not entirely surprised about, but it's one of the ex-London Spitfire roster. This is Bedosian. He is signed with the Seoul Dynasty. Very interesting. So Seoul Dynasty are basically half of London Spitfire right now. London Spitfire's inaugural season-winning roster. And something to touch on with the London Spitfire right now, they've retired all the numbers of their league-winning side as well. So just to let people know that. It'll be interesting to see where Seoul go with this, because they've now got Blossom, Gesture and Prophet, all from London Spitfire. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. We go back to NA Contenders, where Phase 2 have let Nishik, the support player, go. And then to Talent Esports in the Pacific, where they have signed 4 Korean players, 2 supports and 2 tanks. This is Think, Piggy, Dotori and Swoon. And then back to Europe. This is a nightmare. This is back to Europe, and we have the Angry Titans signing 6 players, so basically an entire roster. It's the Danish DPS player Naga, the Israeli DPS player Wayfast, 2 British tanks, Brute and White Noise, and then we have the Slovakian support Blue X and the Estonian support player Admiral Raptor. This will be the Angry Titans roster for the Contenders season, basically. Then Paris Eternal. Paris Eternal have signed 3 players from Talon Esports, which is very interesting. This is Patafan, the Thailand DPS player, South Korean tank Moose, and the Taiwanese support player CQB. They've also complemented that with 2 coaches, Lerenagar and David Strid, and then the support player Afox, the tank player Hafikal, good to see Hafikal with the team again, and the DPS players Urki and Suna. This is looking like a good Eternal roster, a good Eternal Academy roster, and a roster that can compete now, because Eternal Academy really did struggle early on in their existence, basically. And I think this is an Eternal Academy roster that could cause some surprises during this Contender season in Europe. But moving on, and now we go to Talon Esports again in the Pacific, who have signed 2 DPS players, South Korean DPS players, Arrow and Dekul. Then we have the DPS player, the Danish DPS player Fupsin, transferring to HSL Esports in Europe as well. Sticking with Europe, and we have Shoes Money Crew EU, who have announced basically most of their entire roster. 2 coaches, Quiet and De Wolf. Then the 2 Czech Republic support players, Zytor and Exarath. The support player from Great Britain, Cronus. The 2 tank players, the German Naru and the Danish Doge. And then we have the Austrian DPS player, Serkoi. Right, now we move on to the Fusion Uni issue. Fusion University no longer exists. It's been renamed and rebranded to T1. T1 is basically the company that owns it. T1 is now the rebranded Fusion University, and they have announced most of their roster. So they have signed the South Korean DPS player Nice, the DPS player from Yemen, Zerocious, the 2 tank players from South Korea, QOQ, remember him from Runaway, and Ion. And then we have the 2 support players, the Canadian 6 Feet and the Korean Physics. Their coach will be Arhan, who you may know from the Houston Outlaws not so long ago. Very interesting signings by T1 there, actually. QOQ is a massive pickup. Actually a massive pickup. Ex-Runaway. Really good signing. But back to the Overwatch League, and there's going to be a bit of Overwatch League coming up now. And we have Coolmat. Now this is a heck of a story. Coolmat will not be a player for the Houston Outlaws next season. He'll be part of their organisation now, but he has taken a massive, massive pay cut so that Houston Outlaws could afford to sign Jexe, which is incredibly selfless of Coolmat, and it shows his commitment to the Houston Outlaws. It's a massive, massive thing to do, and you've got to just, take your hat off to him. What a fantastic thing for Coolmat to do, and it really does give the Houston Outlaws a chance of competing this season. It's really, really good. But moving on, and more Overwatch League news. This is 2 signings by the Hangzhou Spark, and it's promotions from their academy team Bilibili Gaming in Chinese Contenders. This is Mika and Coldest. I've probably gone through this earlier in the day in the Hangzhou Sparks roundup, so I won't cover this too much. But what I will cover is the massive moves at Chengdu Hunters. Now, I wasn't able to cover this in their roundup because it hadn't happened. They have moved the player Gary to a assistant coach role. They have moved the assistant coach Ray to a co-head coach role, who will be a co-head coach alongside Dokebi, who was head coach of LG Huya. LG Huya have done very well in Chinese Contenders and are the academy team of Chengdu in Chinese Contenders. They have also signed 2 players from LG Huya. This is Molly, the Chinese tank player, and Lengsa, the Chinese support player. They have also signed one unassigned player, and this is a Ting, the DPS player from Taiwan. A lot of moves at the Chengdu Hunters. This really does flesh out that squad. It's good to see. And I hope this really does spur the Chengdu Hunters on, because they needed to sort out the coaching issue after the problems they had late last year. But moving on, and we move to Australia now. There's going to be a bit of Australian news coming up. So Atletico Esports have changed their roster. They have let go of quite a few. This is their managers of Raw, Coach 7, substitutes Wheel and Zetzol, support players Designing Goobs, and DPS players Wuvo and D Field. Then they have moved a load of players in, along with a manager and 2 coaches as well. So these are the manager Jandy from Poland, coaches Lick from America, and the Danish coach Sindustries. And then 2 Danish support players, Fal and Watio. And then the New Zealand tank player JCap, the Chinese DPS player BRS, and the Australian DPS player Nahimi. That is most of the roster signed for Atletico Esports ahead of Australian Contenders. Then we go to Legacy Esports, who have let go of a lot of their roster as well. This is their manager Soap, substitutes Mo and Astro, the support players Stolen Picnic, the tank players Noose and Fundre, and the DPS players Rani and Eek. Then at No Weaver have let go of the Singapore tank player Akame. Back to Europe, we're getting there, we're nearly at the end. Back to Europe, HSL Esports have signed the Finland support player Dollar. And then we come to Samsung Morning Stars, who have had a lot of their roster taken away as well. They have signed the Italian coach Junt from Warriors Esports, the Dutch support player Sab from Mind Your Manners, and then they have signed a bunch of free agents. This is the Indian coach Blue, the Swedish manager Majesta, the Swedish support Denia, the American tank player Frosted, the French tank player Seiken, and then 3 Italian DPS players Ali, Lil Young, and Hear the Beat. Whew. Back to the Overwatch League, and we have the LA Valiant signing the British DPS player KSP. KSP was most recently with the XL2 Academy, who will not be starring in NA Contenders this year. He was also with Samsung Morning Stars and Young and Beautiful and Bazooka Puppies. Before that, KSP is actually a very good hit scan player. So this is actually a pretty good pickup for the LA Valiant, but it's not going to solve their problems, I don't think. There's some problems at the LA Valiant, and we'll go over that in their preview when we get to it. Then back to Australia, and we have Order. Order have let go of some of their roster. This is the 2 coaches Project and RQT, the tank player Quartz, and the 2 DPS players Jordation and Yuki. And to round this video off, we need to talk about an old friend called RCK. RCK used to be with Team Giganti, then moved on to Dallas Field and the Boston Uprising in the Overwatch League. He then left the Overwatch League, and now he will be rolling out for HSL Esports in European Contenders. And we wish him all the luck, and all the best of luck to all of these players anyway, because we always do. But I'm going to round it out here because I've got barely a voice left. Barely a voice left. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then.